I was standing in my childhood living room and someone else was unpacking boxes. The floor still creaked in the same spot near the hallway. The scent of cedar still clung to the walls, mixing with dust and memories. But none of it belonged to me anymore. A woman glanced up from a cardboard box, her face confused and slightly annoyed. "Sorry, are you the realtor?" she asked, straightening up. My throat tightened. I couldn't speak for a moment. That's when it hit me like a punch to the stomach. My mother sold the house. She actually sold it. And she never told me. Not a phone call. Not a text. Nothing. I stood there frozen, my keys still dangling from my hand. Keys that apparently opened nothing now. The woman waited for an answer, but I had none to give. My mind was spinning, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. This was supposed to be my fresh start. After the divorce, after everything fell apart, I told Mom I was coming back. He knew. She promised we'd figure it out together. But she handed my entire past to strangers instead. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. She didn't even have the decency to call me first. To warn me. To give me a chance to say goodbye to the place where Dad raised me. I had told her 3 weeks ago that I was moving back after the divorce finalized. She said she understood. She said the house would always be there. And still she handed the keys to strangers like it meant nothing. Like the walls didn't hold Dad's laughter. Like the kitchen didn't smell like his Sunday pancakes every time I closed my eyes. I felt sick to my stomach. Like someone reached inside my chest and ripped out everything familiar. It was like losing my father all over again. That same hollow, weightless feeling. That same sense that the ground beneath me wasn't solid anymore. The woman was still staring at me, waiting for some kind of explanation. "I'm sorry," I managed to whisper. "Wrong house." But it wasn't the wrong house. It was my house. Or at least it used to be. The woman seemed to sense something was wrong. Her expression softened slightly. "Are you okay?" she asked, setting down a picture frame. I shook my head, trying to pull myself together. I used to live here. I didn't know it was sold." Her eyebrows lifted in surprise. "Oh, I'm so sorry. That must be really shocking." She walked over to a folder on the kitchen counter and pulled out some papers. "Here, this is the deed. Maybe it'll help you understand what happened." I took the papers with shaking hands, just scanning them quickly. Standard real estate language. Sale date. Purchase price. Then I saw the name at the bottom. Marlene West. My blood ran cold. Not from fear exactly. From recognition. That name. I knew that name. But from where? My mind raced backward through memories, trying to place it. And then, slowly, like fog lifting, it started coming back to me. Marlene West. I looked up at the woman, my voice barely working. "Is that your name?" She nodded, confused by my reaction. I should probably back up and explain who I am. My name is Alyssa Quinn. I'm 32 years old. Recently divorced. Trying desperately to start my life over from scratch. After my dad died 2 years ago, I kind of drifted. I moved in with my ex-husband, thinking marriage would give me stability. It didn't. It just gave me more loss when that fell apart too. Nowhere really felt like home anymore. Not the apartment I shared with him. Not the little rental I moved into after. Not anywhere. Except that house. Dad's house. Our house. It was the only place that still felt solid. Still felt real. And apparently even that didn't belong to me anymore. Mom and I had never been particularly close. She was always distant, always busy with her own life. But after Dad passed, I thought maybe we'd grow closer. Maybe grief would bring us together. Instead, she just pulled further away. And now this. I drove straight to her condo across town. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. My mind kept replaying the scene. That woman in my living room, those boxes everywhere, that name on the deed. When Mom opened the door, she didn't even look surprised to see me. No guilt. No concern. Just annoyance. "Don't make a scene, Alyssa," she said flatly, stepping aside to let me in. Like I was the one crossing a line. Like I was being unreasonable. Like this wasn't a complete betrayal, just a minor inconvenience. I walked past her into the spotless living room. Everything was white and gray and cold. Nothing like Dad's house. Nothing warm or lived in. "You sold the house," I said, my voice shaking. "You sold it without telling me." She closed the door calmly and crossed her arms. "Yes, I did." No apology. No explanation. Just confirmation. "Why?" I demanded, my voice rising. I told you I was coming back. You knew. Alyssa, sit down. Her tone was ice cold. Controlled. She sat across from me like we were in a business meeting. It was my house, Alyssa. It always was. After your father died, I let you stay there out of generosity. But it was never yours. Each word felt like a slap. As if that place didn't hold every single memory of him. As if the backyard wasn't where he taught me to ride a bike. As if the porch wasn't where we sat every summer evening talking about everything and nothing. As if I should be grateful she let me exist in my own childhood home. Dad would have wanted me to have it, I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady. She laughed. Actually laughed. Sharp and bitter. Your father didn't know what he wanted half the time, Alyssa. He was sentimental and impractical. Someone had to make the hard decisions. I stared at her, stunned. This was the man she married. The man she supposedly loved. I needed the money, she continued. The sale gave me enough to buy this place outright. It was the smart choice. Smart. That's what mattered to her. Not love. Not memory. Just cold, calculated decisions. I took a deep breath, trying to gather my courage. Tell me you didn't know that name, I said slowly. Her expression didn't change. What name? Marlene West. The color drained from her face instantly. Not shock. Not confusion. Just pale, cold recognition. She stood up abruptly, her hands trembling slightly. Don't, she said, her voice low and tight. Don't say that name in my house. There was the reaction I needed to see. Why? I pressed, standing too. Who is she, Mom? Nobody, she snapped, turning away from me. Just someone from a long time ago. It doesn't matter. But it clearly did matter. Her whole body was tense, her jaw clenched. She bought the house, I said. That's not a coincidence, is it? Mom's shoulders stiffened. She didn't turn around. Leave it alone, Alyssa. You don't know what you're talking about. But I did know. Or at least I was starting to. That name wasn't random. That name meant something. And my mother's reaction told me everything I needed to know. I knew that look on her face. I'd seen it before, years ago when I'd found something she didn't want me to see. So I went digging. The next morning I drove to my storage unit across town. Boxes were stacked everywhere. Old college textbooks, winter clothes, random junk I couldn't bear to throw away. And buried beneath it all I found what I was looking for. A photo album. One my mom had tried to throw out after Dad's funeral. I'd rescued it, thinking it was just grief making her act strange. Now I knew better. I sat cross-legged on the concrete floor and flipped through the pages. Dad at the lake. Dad at a barbecue. Dad laughing with friends. And then I saw her. Marlene. She was standing next to my dad in several photos. Smiling like she belonged there. Her hand on his shoulder in one picture. The two of them laughing in another. She wasn't just some random friend. She was part of his life. A big part. I stared at the photos, my mind racing backward. I remembered her now. He came to the funeral. She sat alone in the back row wearing a simple black dress. She didn't speak to anyone. Didn't approach the casket. Just sat there quietly, tears streaming down her face. Afterward I asked Mom who she was. A co-worker, Mom had said dismissively. Nobody important. But she was important. The way she cried, that wasn't co-worker grief. That was something deeper. I remembered the way she looked at the casket. Like her whole world was inside it. And I remembered something else too. Before the service started, she glanced at my mother across the room. Just once. And the look Mom gave her back was pure hatred. Cold, silent, unmistakable hatred. At the time I thought it was just grief making everyone tense. But now I understood. Mom didn't hate Marlene because she was a stranger. She hated her because she knew exactly who she was. I called Marlene that afternoon. My hands were shaking as I dialed the number from the real estate paperwork. It rang 3 times before she picked up. Hello. Her voice was warm. Familiar somehow. Hi, this is Alyssa Quinn. I used to live in the house you just bought. There was a pause. Then her voice softened even more. Alyssa. Of course. I was wondering when you'd call. That caught me off guard. You were. Yes, she said gently. I figured you'd have questions. Would you like to come by? I kept some of your father's things. I thought you might want them. My throat tightened. She had Dad's things? We set a time for the next day. Before hanging up, she said something that made my chest ache. You look so much like your dad, Alyssa. I saw you that day you came by. I almost said something, but I didn't know if you'd want to hear from me. Stopped me cold. He had known me all along. The next afternoon I stood on the porch of my old house, Marlene's house now, and knocked. She opened the door with a kind smile. She looked older than in the photos, her hair streaked with gray, but her eyes were the same. Warm and sad. "Come in," she said softly. Walking back inside felt surreal. The furniture was different, but the bones of the house were the same. The creaky floorboard. The afternoon light through the kitchen window. Marlene led me to the dining room and gestured to a box on the table. "These were your father's," she said. "I've kept them safe." I opened the box slowly. Inside were letters, photos, a watch I recognized, a notebook filled with his handwriting. My hands trembled as I touched them. "Who were you to him?" I asked quietly, though I already knew the answer. Marlene met my eyes. "I was his partner, Alyssa. Not in business. In life. We were together for 8 years." The words hung in the air. "He loved you," she added. "He talked about you constantly." I spent the next few days piecing everything together. I went to the county records office and requested copies of all documents related to the house. The clerk handed me a thick folder and I sat in my car reading through every page. That's when I found it. My dad's original will. It clearly stated that the house was to be left to 2 people, me and Marlene West. 50% to each of us. But there was a second document, filed 3 months after his death. A new deed claiming my mother had full ownership. It was signed by her and notarized. But Dad's signature? Looked off. The letters were shaky. The spacing was wrong. I'm not a handwriting expert, but even I could see something wasn't right. My stomach turned. This wasn't just betrayal. This was fraud. She had forged documents to steal the house from both me and Marlene. And she'd gotten away with it. He'll know. I confronted her again, this time with the documents in hand. I didn't call first. I just showed up at her condo and pounded on the door. When she opened it, I shoved the papers at her. "Explain this," I demanded. She barely glanced at them. "What's there to explain? You forged Dad's signature. You stole the house from me and Marlene." She didn't even flinch. Didn't deny it. He was weak, Alyssa. He didn't know what he wanted. He was confused and emotional after his diagnosis. I had to clean up the mess he left behind. Clean up. Like Dad's love for someone else was just a mess to be erased. "He wanted Marlene to have half the house," I said, my voice shaking. "He wanted me to have the other half. You had no right." "I had every right," she interrupted coldly. "I was his wife. Legally, everything was mine. Not according to his will." Her jaw tightened. That will was a mistake. He wrote it when he wasn't thinking clearly. Marlene and I met for coffee the next day. She brought a small box with her. More photos, old letters, things she'd kept hidden for years. "I need you to understand something," she said gently, sliding the box across the table. "Your father and I were together for 8 years. He was planning to leave your mother." I stared at her, processing the words. "He wanted to wait until you were out of college," she continued. "He didn't want to disrupt your life. But he was going to tell you everything. He wanted you to know about me. About us." She pulled out a letter written in Dad's handwriting. It was addressed to me. My hands shook as I unfolded it. The letter explained everything. How he'd met Marlene, how they fell in love, how he'd stayed in his marriage for my sake but couldn't do it anymore. "He was going to give you this after graduation," Marlene said softly. "But he died 2 weeks before." Tears streamed down my face. "Why didn't you tell me? Your mother threatened me. Said if I ever contacted you, she'd make sure I lost everything." I read through the letters and looked at the photos. There was my father, truly smiling. Not the strained, tired smile I remembered from home, but genuine joy. He looked alive. Free. Like a different version of himself. In one photo, he and Marlene were at the beach, arms around each other, faces glowing. In another, they were at a cabin somewhere, laughing over a campfire. These weren't stolen moments. These were a whole life I never knew existed. And for the first time, I didn't just feel sad about losing him. I felt robbed. Robbed of knowing this side of him. Robbed of the truth. Robbed of years I could have spent understanding who he really was. My mother had stolen that from me. Not just the house. My entire understanding of my father. She'd erased him. Erased Marlene. Erased the truth. And I'd believed her version of the story without question. But not anymore. Marlene and I met for coffee the next day. She brought a small box with her. More photos, old letters, things she kept hidden for years. I need you to understand something, she said gently, sliding the box across the table. Your father and I were together for 8 years. He was planning to leave your mother. I stared at her, processing the words. He wanted to wait until you were out of college, she continued. He didn't want to disrupt your life. But he was going to tell you everything. He wanted you to know about me. About us. She pulled out a letter written in Dad's handwriting. It was addressed to me. My hands shook as I unfolded it. The letter explained everything. How he'd met Marlene, how they fell in love, how he'd stayed in his marriage for my sake but couldn't do it anymore. He was going to give you this after graduation, Marlene said softly. But he died 2 weeks before. Tears streamed down my face. Why didn't you tell me? Your mother threatened me. Said if I ever contacted you, she'd make sure I lost everything. I read through the letters and looked at the photos. There was my father truly smiling. Not the strained, tired smile I remembered from home, but genuine joy. He looked alive. Free. Like a different version of himself. In one photo, he and Marlene were at the beach, arms around each other, faces glowing. In another, they were at a cabin somewhere, laughing over a campfire. These weren't stolen moments. These were a whole life I never knew existed. And for the first time, I didn't just feel sad about losing him. I felt robbed. Robbed of knowing this side of him. Robbed of the truth. Robbed of years I could have spent understanding who he really was. My mother had stolen that from me. Not just the house. My entire understanding of my father. She'd erased him. Erased Marlene. Erased the truth. And I'd believed her version of the story without question. But not anymore. Marlene and I sat down with a lawyer. We brought every document we had. The will, the forged deed, the photos, the letters, everything. The lawyer, a sharp woman named Teresa, listened carefully and took notes. This is fraud, she said bluntly. If we can prove your mother forged that document, the sale could be voided. My heart leaped. Really? Yes. But it won't be easy. We'll need a handwriting expert. We'll need to prove intent. And we'll need witnesses who can testify to your father's wishes. Marlene nodded. I have people. Friends of ours who knew about the will. Teresa tapped her pen against the desk. Then we have a case. It'll take time, but we can do this. I looked at Marlene. She reached over and squeezed my hand. We're going to get it back, she said firmly. For your dad. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than grief and anger. I felt hope. We contacted one of Dad's old friends, a man named Richard who'd known both my parents for years. He agreed to meet us at a diner downtown. Richard was older now, his hair gray, but his eyes were still sharp. He hugged me tight when he saw me. Your dad loved you so much, Alyssa, he said. You know that, right? I nodded, tears already forming. We sat down and Marlene explained what we were doing. Richard didn't hesitate. Your dad loved Marlene, he said, looking right at me. He was at peace with her. Happier than I'd ever seen him. He paused, his expression hardening. Your mother hated that. She couldn't stand that he'd found happiness somewhere else. Even after he got sick, she wouldn't let him go. I swallowed hard. Did he ever talk to you about the will? He did. He told me he was leaving the house to you and Marlene. Said it was the right thing to do. That was exactly what we needed to hear. I kept digging through old documents and records. That's when I noticed the date on the forged deed. It was filed on my 18th birthday. The exact day I left for college. I remember that morning so clearly. Mom drove me to campus, helped me unpack my dorm room, then hugged me goodbye. Go make your own life now, Alyssa, she'd said. At the time I thought she was being encouraging. Supportive. Now I understood what she really meant. She was telling me to leave. To get out of the way. So she could erase everything Dad had built without me interfering. That same day, while I was unpacking boxes and meeting my roommate, she was filing paperwork to steal my inheritance. The betrayal hit me all over again. Deeper this time. She'd planned it. Timed it perfectly. Used my own milestone against me. I sat in my car outside the records office and cried until I couldn't cry anymore. I visited my mother one last time before filing the legal paperwork. I didn't tell her why I was coming. I just said I wanted to talk. She let me in, wary but calm. We sat in her cold, sterile living room and I asked simple questions. About Dad. About the house. About Marlene. And she ranted. He called Marlene a mistake. A phase. A distraction. She called me ungrateful for even questioning her. He said Dad was weak and foolish for ever loving someone else. I didn't argue. I didn't interrupt. I just let her talk. And the whole time my phone was recording in my pocket. Every single word. Every confession. Every bitter, hateful sentence. When I finally left, I had everything I needed. With the recording, the documents, and Richard's testimony, we filed a legal petition to challenge the sale. We did it quietly. No press. No public drama. Just a formal complaint filed with the court, requesting a full investigation into the deed transfer and demanding the sale be voided. Teresa, our lawyer, was confident. You have a strong case. This is textbook fraud. The court scheduled a hearing for 6 weeks out. In the meantime, the sale was frozen. Marlene couldn't officially take ownership, but neither could my mother sell it to anyone else. We were in limbo. But at least we were fighting. I sent a copy of the petition to my mother's address. She called 30 seconds after the courier confirmed delivery. I didn't answer. I just let her listen to her own voicemail, panicked and furious, begging me to call her back. I deleted it without listening all the way through. Words spread fast in my mother's social circles. Apparently, someone at the courthouse recognized her name and mentioned the case to a mutual acquaintance. From there it rippled outward. Her friends stopped calling. Invitations dried up. The neighbors who'd always admired her polished, put-together image, started whispering when she walked by. She'd spent years carefully curating her reputation. The devoted widow. The strong, independent woman. But now, people were asking questions. Uncomfortable questions. I heard through a cousin that she'd stopped going to her usual book club. Stopped attending church events. She was hiding. Good. She'd stolen my father's truth. She'd stolen my inheritance. Now she could sit with the consequences of her choices. For once, appearances couldn't save her. The hearing came faster than I expected. Teresa presented our case methodically. The forged signature. The timeline. Richard's testimony. The recorded conversation. My mother's lawyer tried to argue that the will was invalid, that Dad had been too sick to make sound decisions. But Teresa destroyed that argument. Medical records showed Dad was lucid and coherent when he drafted the will. His doctor even submitted a statement confirming it. The judge listened carefully, asked pointed questions, and then made her ruling. The sale was voided. The deed was declared fraudulent. Marlene and I were granted joint ownership of the house, exactly as Dad had intended. But there was more. The money my mother had made from the sale? She'd used it to buy her condo outright. The judge ordered that property to be placed under review as well. If she couldn't repay the sale amount, she'd have to sell the condo. She was being forced to leave. When I walked back into the house, our house, I braced myself for change. But when I opened the door to my old bedroom, I froze. It was exactly the same. My posters still on the walls. My bookshelf untouched. Even my old quilt still folded on the bed. Marlene appeared in the doorway behind me. It didn't feel right to change it, she said softly. This was always yours, Alyssa. I was just keeping it safe. That's when I broke down. Really cried. Deep, shaking sobs that I'd been holding in for months. Marlene wrapped her arms around me and held me while I fell apart. He loved you so much, she whispered. He'd be so proud of you. I stayed in that room for hours, surrounded by memories of Dad. Real memories. Not the sanitized version my mother had tried to sell me. For the first time since he died, I felt close to him again. I didn't text my mother after the hearing. Didn't call. Didn't gloat. I just let her sit with what she'd done. She tried reaching out once. Blocked number, no voicemail. I saw the call come through and ignored it. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done. She'd spent years trying to erase the parts of Dad's life she didn't approve of. Trying to control the narrative. But in the end, she only erased herself. She'd lost the house. Lost her daughter. Lost any sympathy I might have had. All because she couldn't let him be happy. Couldn't accept that love doesn't fit into neat, acceptable boxes. I didn't win because I destroyed her. I won because I walked away. I chose truth over comfort. Chose Dad's memory over her lies. And that was enough. Marlene and I decided to keep the house together. She lives in the main bedroom. I took my old room back. We share the kitchen, the living room, the memories. It's not conventional, but it works. We talk about Dad often. He tells me stories I never knew, about his humor, his kindness, his dreams. And slowly I'm getting to know the father I lost too soon. My mother called one last time a few weeks ago. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. Just 2 words. I didn't say anything back. I just listened to her breathe on the other end of the line. Then I hung up, because some apologies come too late. Some damage can't be undone. She thought I'd come crawling back eventually. Thought I'd need her forgiveness or approval. But I didn't need anything from her anymore. I had the house. I had the truth. I had Marlene, who loved my father the way he deserved. And I had myself, finally knowing who I am and where I came from. That's something she can never take back.